Imagine that you're sitting at a bar with your friends. You ordered your drink of choice, you're having a great time and watching the basketball game. You turn to your left and you see a 16-year-old ordering a drink from the bar. You see her with her friends, her prepubescent acne, and the braces protruding from the bottom of her lip. And you're thinking to yourself, how is she able to drink right now? How is she inside this bar? Well, that's the reality for a few countries in Europe, especially Germany, Belgium, and Luxembourg. Hi, I'm Brittany, and today I'd like to discuss with you why we should not lower the minimum drinking age and why we should keep it at 21. Drinking is a social activity. It's popular in Western countries as well as all around the world, but that does not mean that anybody should be allowed to drink. There are several factors that play into the amount of alcohol that you should drink: substance abuse and cognitive brain development. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, well, I know plenty of 18-year-olds that are mature enough to drink. They can make their own decisions for themselves. Well, when states lowered the alcohol drinking age to 18 in the 1960s, 60% of all traffic fatalities were due to drunk driving. And then, when they bring the drinking age back up to 21 in 1984, drunk driving accidents dropped by 50%. The greatest decline of fatalities coming from ages 16 to 20 years old, meaning that that was the largest age of fatalities that were occurring due to drunk driving. You may still be thinking to yourself, okay, well, that is based on education, on whether or not you should be drinking and driving, knowing the difference between one glass of alcohol and two. But the fact of the matter is that Harvard University recently did a study, and they noted that 7 out of 10 college students are binge drinking. 7 out of 10. That's a very large number of students to be binge drinking, not even just drinking, binge drinking at parties or on a social basis. Adolescents who drink before the age of 21, particularly through binge drinking, are at risk for causing permanent brain damage. The adolescent time is when the brain is actually developing the most on a cognitive level. So one area that experiences the most rapid changes during the teenage years is the prefrontal cortex. That's the area of the brain that's involved with judgment and decision making. By drinking or binge drinking, mainly binge drinking, you are causing lots of judgment and decision making, not only for the short term, but for the long term as well. You also may be thinking to yourself, but what about Europe? They have great alcohol prevention tactics. Why can't the same be issued for the United States? The Pacific Institute of Research and Evaluation, as well as the European School Survey Project on Alcohol and Other Drugs, did a survey with 38 countries in Europe. They were able to get random schools to participate, random high schools, where 15 to 16-year-olds took a survey based on their alcohol consumption in the past month. So one common myth that people think about is that European countries are introduced to alcohol in a cultural context, and this reduces heavy and harmful drinking. Well, actually, based on the study that was conducted by the European School Survey Project on Alcohol and Drugs, the percentage of young people reporting having been intoxicated in the past 30 days was actually higher in Europe than in the United States. People also think that since they have the ability to drink earlier, young Europeans are able to learn how to drink responsibly than people in the United States who binge drink because they were not taught how to drink from an early age. When in actuality, U.S. adolescents show lower or equal rates for intoxication as compared to the adolescents in Europe. People also think, okay, well, alcohol can only be harmful if consumed in large amounts. When in actuality, adolescents that drink before the age of 15 are 6 times more likely to suffer from alcohol dependence or abuse problems in the future. Taking a look at this graph that was represented from the report that I mentioned earlier, figure 3, this is a graph showing 15 to 16-year-olds reporting intoxication before the age of 13. If you take a look here, 18 countries from Europe are represented on this bar graph, showing that 25% of the 15 and 16-year-olds in Denmark reported being intoxicated before the age of 13. Now, if you take into consideration that the majority of the countries in Europe have a legal drinking age of 18, the majority of these countries mentioned here, the only one that did not have a percentile being Spain, have a minimum drinking age of 18, and yet 13-year-olds were intoxicated in their country. Let's also keep in mind that the cognitive development issue that I mentioned to you earlier, where adolescents who drink before the age of 15, only 15, not 13, are 6 times more likely to develop drug problems. Let's also keep in mind that the prefrontal cortex that I mentioned, where your judgment and decision making are impaired. Now, drinking as early as the age of 13 can also include problems with your memory, problems with the developmental process of your brain moving forward, as well as learning disabilities that can still develop at a young age. Now, I'm not saying that 21 is the perfect number, because unfortunately in the United States, underage drinking still occurs. The department that regulates drug abuse noted that 35% of underage adolescents reported having had a drink in the past 30 days. Of those 35%, 21% of them were binge drinking, and 10% drove after drinking. There is still a great need for education within the United States. There are many things that I think that we can improve on in order to limit the amount of underage drinking that occurs and educate people on why underage drinking is such a misuse of our time. No one should have to bury their child, and drinking while driving and binge drinking are major issues that can cause fatalities in the United States, and it's something that I think should really be prevented. Restrictions that I believe would help with this issue, although I mentioned about European countries having a low policy for alcoholic drinking, they actually have great policies in their advertisements. Italy only had 7% of intoxications under the age of 13, which is still cause for concern, but lower than the majority of the other countries in Europe with that issue. Their advertising policies are a ban on advertising for spirits between 4 and 7 p.m., ban on advertising in all children's programs, and they have a youth protection policy that prevents any advertisement anywhere where there is a big youth a big youth crowd in general. I really believe that something like this could help the United States, having restrictions in certain advertising policies, because when something is depicted as sociable, as likable, as something that many people really want to do, it is more likely that they're going to want to try it. Whereas if it's not shown to you at an early age, it's restricted from you, and you begin to learn about it in the appropriate times, you are more educated and you're more likely to make the correct decisions. I also believe having open communication and education within families and the school system could also really help to benefit and restrict underage drinking and drinking at appropriate times. Parents who communicate with their children at young ages are more likely to see their teenage children view alcohol as harmful and less likely to drink it between the ages of 17 and 18, whereas a lack of communication and monitoring is more likely to have them drink or begin heavy drinking. Binge drinking is something that, like mentioned in the Harvard University study, happens a lot in colleges and is now becoming more apparent in high school. I really believe that if we had a communication process where we were able to teach people why binge drinking is such a harmful activity, we would be able to save a lot of lives. Drinking is okay. Socially, you want to be able to have fun and experience life in a different way. But I also believe that you need to know your limits. Sometimes what you may think may be a great activity is not the best thing. And in knowing all the facts surrounding your health, surrounding the people around you, and what you can do if you do things inappropriately can really benefit for the future and the well-being of the United States. Thank you.